From the first marks in clay to the cities of tomorrow, this is History Passed Forward.
In January 2026, the United States didn't invade Venezuela, which, historically speaking, already makes this story unusual. There was no declaration of war, no occupation. Instead, the US arrested a sitting president. Nicolás Maduro didn't flee. He didn't resign. He was taken. And the strange part is, this had been building for almost a decade. To understand how we got here, you have to start with oil, and a man named Hugo Chavez. Venezuela had the world's largest proven oil reserves, and Chavez promised to use them to break free from US influence. For a while, it worked. Then oil prices fell, corruption rose, and the economy collapsed like a folding chair at a political rally. Hyperinflation followed, supermarkets emptied, millions left the country. When Chavez died in 2013, his successor took over, and things went from bad to, how is this still functioning? In 2019, the United States tried something different. It recognized opposition leader Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela. Other countries followed. Speeches were made, statements were issued. For a brief moment, Venezuela had two presidents. Only one of them controlled the army, and that turned out to matter more than press releases. Maduro stayed in power. The military stayed loyal, and that loyalty wasn't accidental. Senior officers were deeply tied into the system. Oil, shipping, customs revenue. Losing Maduro didn't just mean losing a leader, it meant losing access. Washington quietly realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't going to resolve itself. In 2020, the US Department of Justice made an unprecedented move. It indicted a sitting foreign president on drug trafficking charges, which is usually the moment when international law politely clears its throat. Prosecutors accused Maduro of leading what they called the Cartel of the Suns, a network allegedly moving cocaine through Venezuela and toward the US. Washington put a bounty on his arrest, not metaphorically, tens of millions of dollars. At its peak, the reward rivaled bounties placed on major cartel figures, not diplomats. At that point, head of state became more of a strong recommendation. Now, corruption exists everywhere. Venezuela's problem was that it came with shipping logistics. Geography mattered. Venezuela sits on key Caribbean routes. It has ports, oil infrastructure, and access to trafficking corridors. According to US prosecutors, Maduro wasn't incidental to the system. He was allegedly central to it. From Washington's perspective, this wasn't just a bad government. It became a variable to be controlled, not a government to be persuaded. Sanctions followed. Oil exports were restricted. Tankers were tracked. Accounts were frozen. Sanctions have a problem, though. They assume everyone involved is acting in good faith, which is adorable. Venezuela adapted. Oil still moved. Money still flowed. Corruption, as it turns out, is extremely flexible. And by the mid-2020s, US policy shifted again. Not toward invasion, not toward regime change, toward something colder. Law enforcement, with naval support. And now here's the key legal idea. Sovereign immunity protects heads of state, but it isn't infinite. The US frames the case not as politics, but as transnational crime. Narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, conspiracy. This wasn't entirely new. The US had gone after foreign leaders before, Manuel Noriega in Panama being the most famous example. But never with this kind of legal framing, scale, or precedent. The argument was simple. You can't hide behind a flag if you're allegedly running a cartel. Once that framing took hold, the presidency stopped being a shield. It became a jurisdictional inconvenience. In early 2026, the theory became a reality. US forces moved quickly. Targets were limited. The objective was singular. Maduro was detained and flown out of Venezuela. No declaration of war, no occupation. Just a boarding pass that did not come with a return date. Maduro called it a kidnapping. The US called it justice. Lawyers called it job security. This wasn't just about Venezuela. It rewrote the rules. For the first time, the US treated a foreign leader like the executive leadership of a criminal enterprise. Supporters say it sends a message. Power doesn't equal immunity. Critics warn it sets a dangerous precedent. If this can happen to Venezuela, who's next? Which is not a comforting sentence for anyone currently running a country. Thank you for listening to History Passed Forward. Here, history isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes it's written by prosecutors. And footnoted by drones.
In the middle of the plaza, he moved like water, like rumor, smooth, inevitable. And then, as if the cobblestones themselves had invited him, he sank into a perfect split.